for this webinar. Today, myself, Faraz Syed of Checkpoint Technologies, and Gurmeen Aneja, product manager, senior product manager from HP, will be presenting on Performance Application Lifecycle and DevOps with Performance Center. We're also going to talk about some of the new features of LoadRunner and Performance Center 5.2. But before we get into that, I just wanted to kind of do a quick introduction and talk a little bit about Checkpoint Technologies, and then we will move into more technical aspect of this webinar. About Checkpoint Technologies, we were incorporated in January of 2003, so we've been in business for 10 years. Our headquarters is based out of Tampa, Florida, with presence all across the United States. We're also the elite HP software partner, which means that we have one of the highest level of partnership with HP, specializing in application lifecycle management products such as Performance Center, LoadRunner, UFT, Unified Functional Testing, and so on. We also provide first-year support for technical support for our customers. So if you have a maintenance contract that's coming up for renewal, feel free to reach out to us and we can certainly help you with it. We have a state-of-the-art training center based at our headquarters, and we are also an authorized training partner for HP. Again, our solutions focus is on ALM, and which includes functional testing, performance testing, and application security. Here are some services that we offer, from staff augmentation, long-term projects, to consulting, which includes assessments, deployment, upgrades of your existing tools. We also provide onshore American-based outsourcing options as well, providing specialties and resources for functional testing and performance testing. Again, we are an authorized training partner for HP, and we can provide training, on-site training at customer locations, virtual or public training classes through our training center. We can also customize mentoring, customized training and mentoring sessions for you, which are cost-effective and usually target specific topics for the tools. So with that out of the way, we're going to start talking about Performance Application Lifecycle. So before we get into the tools aspect of it, I want to talk a little bit about the DevOps. I mean, that's a new term that everyone kind of is talking about and hearing. What exactly is DevOps? If you look at Wikipedia, the definition is that DevOps is software development method that stresses communication, collaboration, and integration between the software development team, testing team, and operations. So you're trying to basically do three things. You're trying to collaborate, you're trying to communicate better using tools, and you're trying to integrate. There was a recent survey that was done. As a matter of fact, I was reading this article just 2 days ago, where through Rebel Labs, they interviewed 620 engineers. And it was a survey, and out of the 620, 65% said that DevOps is a major and key initiative. So with that understanding, there are a lot of companies, including us, HP, tools are gearing and incorporating a lot of DevOps methodology or concepts like collaboration. So what is the biggest challenge? If you look at the traditional landscape of testing organizations and production operations organization, there is this wall in the center. They work in silos. They don't have a lot of collaboration. There's lack of communication. And as a result of that, there are challenges that come across. For example, applications failing in production after being tested, or testing world trying to figure out what exactly is going on in production. Some examples are here on the screen. For example, service level objectives. That's very important for testing organization to understand what my objectives are from service level perspective. Vice versa, production. They need to understand what the SLAs are. They want to understand, am I monitoring the right things? On the testing side, They wonder, am I testing the right things? So there's this disconnect that creates a confusion and ultimately problems on both sides. So the bottom line is, the testing organization wants to do the testing and test the right business processes, and production team wants to get a quality release from testing organization. They want to make sure that when they get a package or a release, it's completely tested, right things have been tested, and we're not going to have any production down or production system going down or any performance issues. So how do you really solve the problem? You solve it by what I talked about earlier. You solve it by collaboration, integration, and communication. So you bring the two organizations together, test and production, hence the DevOps. Now, I talked a little bit about, Performance Center and other HP tools incorporating DevOps principle within the product itself. So if you look at the Performance Center, for example, there is a module called Performance Application Lifecycle. This PAL, the module, what it allows you to do is it allows you to capture data from production and bring it into testing. And we're going to talk a little bit about, what kind of data that you can collect and what the process is. But the type of data you're capturing is typically from Business Service Management, formerly Business Availability Center, and within the Business Service Management product suite, you have three things that you can capture, three different types of data. You can capture the real user data, you can capture the synthetic user data, and you can also capture the infrastructure data. The real user monitor allows you to capture the real user behaviors. It allows you to capture, information from the logs, what the users are doing, how they're using the system. Similarly, you have Business Process Monitor module, which allows you to run synthetic users periodically from different locations. So you're capturing information such as response time and availability. And the third is equally important, is the site scope. Site scope data, which is the infrastructure data, things like CPU, memory, paging, and as such. So what does this really do? All this data, once you're able to capture, you're able to capture this data, take it into testing to make your test more realistic, accurate, and reliable. And that's the biggest challenge on testing site. They want to be able to simulate the right type of load to be realistic, comparable to production. It has to be accurate. It has to be reliable. So using the Performance Application Lifecycle module of Performance Center, you can collect and analyze the production data. You can take it into load testing, simulate, create scenarios, run the load test, analyze the data, and then compare it to production. And then find the differences, refine your scenario again if it doesn't match up, and run it again. So that's a cycle. It's an iterative process. It's an iterative cycle where you compare the test data to production and then tune your tests to be more comparable to production. From Business Service Management, folks on this call that are familiar with the Business Service Management UI, you can go under the Application Lifecycle Management Integration tab and export data out of there. It's a zip file. You can provide a range, a custom range, or you can even have a fixed range of what data you want to collect. And you can pick an application. You might have multiple applications that you're monitoring using BSM. And also select what type of data you want to collect. You want to collect the real user monitor data plus site scope plus business process monitor. And once you have selected your parameters, you simply click on a generate button and it will generate a report. And it will tell you what it was able to capture and what it was not able to capture. Now, there are two ways from where you can capture the data. One is through BSM, Business Service Management. The other is WebTrans. The other alternative, if you don't have these two, you can also capture data from other sources, but through an API. So it has to be a custom written process or program that will bring the data in. Once you have generated the report, then you take the report into Performance Center, Performance Lifecycle, Application Lifecycle module, and the report looks like what you're seeing on the screen. It includes, for example, site scope data. It includes real user monitor data, and as well as synthetic. Now, based on the data, you want to refine your load test. You want to execute it. And as I talked about earlier, it's an iterative process. Once you run the test, then you can compare your test data on the left-hand side to your production data. Okay? You have a baseline data, and really you're looking at how things are happening in production. And the goal here is to really look at what the differences are and hone in on those discrepancies between the two and try to bring that as close as you can so that you're really creating conditions in your test environment that you see in production. So that's the Performance Application Lifecycle presentation and module within Performance Center. Now, one of the other things about DevOps, that's one option or one element of DevOps, right? There's also other elements of DevOps. For example, provisioning infrastructure. That's it's a very important area. For example, nowadays with the Agile, you really can't wait for weeks and months to provision hardware to run your test. So there's another element to this, which is lab management and continuous delivery automation. So I'm going to have Gurmeen, the product manager, she's the product manager from HP, going to talk about lab management, and also after that, subsequently, I've talked a little bit about some of the new features of LoadRunner. So Gurmeen, take it away.
Thank you, Faraz. Okay, everyone, so we're going to talk a little bit about lab management automation. And as I progress through the slide, you'll see some of the elements behind it, some of the connection points within our ALM and Performance Center suite of products, and the challenges that it addresses. Okay, so once we're done with creating our testing assets, we are at a point where we're ready to actually run our load test on an application under test. At this point, what we need is a lab. And at that point, we assume that in most cases that a lab for our application or even our testing resources is ready, the build is ready, we're allowed to run the test, and now we can immediately report on it. Now, this is how we know on the testing side, on the performance testing, on the functional testing side, that this is actually not the case. So just a second. I think I seem to be having some issues with progressing the slides. Kate?
Okay, Gurmeen, I just give you the keyboard and mouse control. You should be able to move forward.
Okay.
Okay, just say next slide and I'll do it for you.
Okay, all right, so go ahead.
Yep.
However, we know the challenges that exist around provisioning for this sort of setup. We know that there is somebody who needs to be responsible for setting up a lab. We know there's definitely some sort of paperwork and process involved. Do you actually have the infrastructure for this sort of provisioning, or do you need to request it and it needs to go through all sorts of change management cycles to get it done? What if you actually want to do this on a public or a private cloud? You're testing as well as your application under test. This is a long drawn process, and there are definitely challenges around getting you to a point where you can test successfully. So go ahead. Okay. In addition to that, now that we're at a point where we want to actually look at lab provisioning, we're also looking at the deployment of the build. That's another challenge that we face. We need to understand when the application is actually ready from a point of view of testing, when it's when the latest build that we've actually recorded scripts for, we've actually recorded or created a functional test for, when is that application build actually on the environment and when is it ready to test? And this is where lab management automation helps us. So just to take a step back and talk about the lab itself. So lab for testing resources was something that has always been available with Performance Center. In fact, it's a differentiator that comes with Performance Center when you go down the upgrade path for LoadRunner. The lab is basically the way it existed before 11.5 was a version where you had the ability to basically manage your testing resources, and these are specifically your LoadRunner controllers and your generators. You had the ability to pool these resources for specific types of projects and testing, and you also have the ability to schedule how you want to use these resources in your tests going forward, specifically around performance testing. What we've done now with lab management is we've extended that capability to ALM as well. And what that means is now ALM has the ability to use lab for their functional testing needs as well. So you'll have the ability to provision hosts or basically manage hosts around functional testing as well. In addition to that, we provide an integration with CDA, which is continuous delivery automation, where you have the ability to basically build a model for your application under test, provision a lab for it, and then deploy the application build directly from one interface, which is your ALM interface, onto that application under test. In addition to that, you have the ability to schedule this deployment. So you had always the ability to schedule your tests, but now you have the ability to schedule the deployment of the lab and the deployment of the build via the integration that exists with CDA, which is continuous delivery automation. Once you've done that, you go through your normal process, or maybe not normal process, because at this point your build manager may get involved. You will have the ability to execute a build verification suite, which includes functional tests, performance tests, security tests, directly from the ALM platform, and allow you to run through it at one time. Okay, so Faraz, if you could go ahead. Okay, so just a few screenshots that show you the managing and scheduling of lab. This is what it looks like now. You'll see very clearly that not only are we looking at controllers, data processors, and load generators as our hosts, but we're also looking at hosts that would cater to your QTP scripts or your UST scripts, your service test scripts, and in many cases your API scripts that you're running with other solutions or homegrown solutions that you've built an integration into ALM with. That's a good idea. Okay, we go to the next one. Okay, very similar to what we've been doing with lab in PC. You now have the ability to pool these resources, pool your resources that are functional based, pool your resources that are performance based, and use the capabilities that lab management already provides. In addition to that, what we're showing you right here is initially before the version 11, you had the ability to add hosts that would basically allow you to run just performance tests, but now you can purpose the host to do API tests, functional tests, etc. And of course, you also have the ability to schedule these. So when I am actually running or running an ad hoc test, or I'm scheduling for a test that is supposed to run in the future, I have the ability to calculate if these machines are actually available for me to run the test, and which machines or which pool am I actually going to get this information from. Now this integration of ALM with PC this integration of CDA with ALM exists on an integrated environment where you have ALM and PC in the same place. Okay, go ahead, Faraz. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about scheduling, the lab deployment, and the test execution. This happens once you actually connect to a CDA instance. And a CDA instance, which is a continuous delivery automation, is going to allow you to do your provisioning of your infrastructure as well as the deployment of your build. And all of this can be controlled directly from within the ALM suite. If you see, what we have here is we're looking at the build verification module. Within the build verification module, you have the ability to, like I said, provision and deploy, and then you get to a point where you actually have the ability to run. Once the provisioning and the deployment is done, or you're using a pre-deployed instance, you now have the ability to run your functional, your security, and your performance tests on this instance. Go ahead, Faraz. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit. So just to do a quick overview of what we just went through. With version 11.5 of Performance Center, we introduced two new things. One is Performance Application Lifecycle, which is the connection to production, where you have the ability to import packages of production information into Performance Center, do a comparison of what you're testing and what's actually happening in production, tune your load test so it mirrors production more closely, which gives you the ability to be more realistic in your testing. That's one. That's Performance Application Lifecycle. We talked about it integrating with Web Trends and our BSM suite of products, as well as it provides an API that allows you to connect to others. There's a very strong roadmap ahead for this feature set with regards to integrating with other tools in terms of analysis. In addition to that, we talked about lab management automation, which allows you to now use LMA or lab management automation for ALM, which means other than performance, you can use it for other testing, scheduling of testing resources. In addition to that, you now have the ability to connect to CDA and provision your infrastructure for your AUT and also deploy your build on top of it, all through the same interface. Now what we're coming down to is some of the new features within VuGen that were introduced as part of 11.5, and then we're going to progress to a few revolutionary things that happen in 5.2. So in 11.5, we actually introduced a new VuGen. Basically what we mean is we provided our customers with a completely new IDE for scripting. And it's based on a solution module where you have the ability to have a solution and multiple scripts in it, much more closer to what a real IDE looks like. Go ahead. Okay. In addition to that, what we did is we provided an integration within VuGen itself that allows you to connect to the HP Online community. And this has been enhanced much more with 5.2, where we connect to the HP Live network that has probably the highest number of users that are currently our LoadRunner customers and our performance customers. Go ahead, Raz. Okay, so this is a quick screenshot of the script editor in terms of, there was a lot of, for example, you can see a lot of color coding going on here. Huge enhancement that had been requested for a long time for VuGen, something that was implemented, much easier, intuitive, user-friendly interface. Go ahead. Go ahead. You also have the ability to define your layout. So as a user of VuGen, you'll have the ability to customize the way VuGen should look for your own personal preferences. Again, there has been enhancements with regards to the correlation capabilities as well. So as you know, we have the ability to do correlation in 3 ways. Two of them being automatic. All of that has been grouped into one area. So to enhance or provide ease of use as far as the correlation feature set is concerned. Next. Okay. In addition to that, I believe everyone is already aware of our True Client protocol. This was released with quite a couple of years ago with the current versions or the 11 versions of LoadRunner, of course, used very heavily by our client base, specifically because it has the ability to do ease of scripting, because you don't have to deal with any correlations. It has the ability to capture your AJAX-related information and also render your JavaScript on your client side, specifically built to be agnostic given the huge wave of Web 2.0 applications out there. So with the release of 11.5.2, we actually provide now an integration with IE9. In addition to that, there's been some updates with regards to how we support 64-bit applications, IPv6, as well as .NET 4. Go ahead. Okay. I want to focus a little bit on the mobile performance validation that we have taken a serious take on with 11.5 as well as 11.5.2. So with 11.5, we actually introduced two new protocols, which were the mobile web protocol, which is similar to the HTTP protocol but mobile focused. And then you have the mobile True Client protocol that allows you to look at the specifics of a particular device and do your recording accordingly. What we've done in 11.5.2, we've obviously enhanced both of these protocols, the applications protocol, which is at the web level, and also the True Client protocol to emulate true user experience and make it better for your agile development, given that the scripting time when using True Client actually reduces to 20% of the entire life cycle of performance testing. In addition to that, we provided new recording options, and I want to highlight a couple of these, specifically the proxy recording option, where you have the ability to set up a proxy to capture mobile traffic on a device where, say, for example, VuGen is cannot be installed, for example. The other one is we've also provided an on-device recording for the Android device. You have the ability to basically do your recording on an Android device and then send that recording over to your VuGen machine, and you basically have a script that has captured everything that happened on that device. Of course, there is again a strong roadmap to support further recording options for on-device needs. In addition to that, there's been a focus on better integrating with our already available solution, which is the Shanra network virtualization. Next. Okay. Just to focus a little bit on the performance. This is specifically on the performance of LoadRunner and some of the components that come with it. For example, the recording, the code generation, and the replay. There has been a huge focus on improving the performance of those on the client machines or the desktop machines. In addition to that, focus on improving analysis, how fast it can actually render the results for load test in the analysis UI. Next. Okay. I want to definitely spend some time on this. I'm hoping a lot of people on the phone are already familiar with the virtual table server. It has been kind of a hidden aspect of HP's performance testing suite, has not been marketed well enough, if I were to say so myself. What we've done in the new release of 11.5.2 is actually revamped the entire virtual table server and given it a new UI, given it some very major enhancements to support the dynamic data generation for load testing. So specifically, you have the ability to, you've always had the ability with VTS to dynamically create data, use that data in another script during a load test. Now what we've done is actually provided you with a web console specifically for this activity, easier import and export of data, and also API connections for the same. Next. Okay. Want to focus a little bit more on, continuing to talk about agility and continuous delivery. There's there's been a shift in some of the areas of development as far as the protocols are concerned. We are looking at, with 11.5.2, LoadRunner now has the capability to integrate with Visual Studio and Eclipse. It has the ability now to run unit tests within load test scenarios. So for example, if you're working with a particular unit test solution, you can now actually run these tests, such as Selenium tests, as part of LoadRunner scenarios. And at this point in time, this integration exists currently with LoadRunner as well, but it's obviously going to be absorbed by Performance Center in the future. In addition to that, there is a plugin that has been developed that allows for the launch of LoadRunner scripts or LoadRunner scenarios directly as part of a build process. And it is associated with a status where, for example, when I'm setting up my LoadRunner scenario, if I associate it with SLAs and I don't meet that SLA and it provides me with a status, that is exactly the status that is reported into Jenkins once my test is over. Next. Next. Okay. I did talk a little bit about building on community. So let's just focus on that a little bit. We realize that LoadRunner and Performance Center probably has the largest online community as far as users are concerned, and of course we want to take advantage of this. So we have provided an integration from VuGen, a direct integration from VuGen into the HP Live network. And what this allows you to do is actually receive automated content from the portal. So if you have customers that may be, or users, or partners, or even R&D working on correlation rules, or data format extensions, or even libraries that could be used by the community, you have the ability to upload them directly from VuGen or download them directly from the HP Live network that has an integration that's built into VuGen itself. So next. And what you're seeing here is that integration in VuGen. And of course, there's been a lot of focus on keeping current with the technologies in the market, specifically around Windows 8, Chrome, Java, etc. So we have all of the support that was introduced in 11.5.2 as far as LoadRunner is concerned, and as far as what Performance Center absorbs from the LoadRunner release. Next. So I guess at this point, that was a little bit rushed, but at this point we just come to the end of our presentation, and we would definitely welcome some questions around some of the content that we presented today.
And folks, on the right-hand side of your screen, if you click on the webinar, there's a point, and there's a panel that will come out. Under that panel, you can click on the Questions tab and submit your questions through that. So we can see them, and what I'll do is once we receive the questions, I'll ask them and repeat it for Gurmeen or answer them myself. So while we wait for some questions, we've got a very quiet crowd here today. So I have a couple of questions. Gurmeen thought I'll kick things off, and then we'll wait for some folks to send their questions. So one of my questions, Gurmeen, if you can help answer is, as you know, there's been a lot of focus on continuous delivery, right? I mean, it's a new part of the DevOps, strategy, which everyone is talking about. Organizations are looking at, the continuous delivery models. So can you talk a little bit about, how continuous delivery impacts performance testing and how it plays into performance testing, and what is HP doing from tools perspective to make continuous delivery easier and incorporate into performance testing projects?
So some of the things, a good step for us was what we actually introduced in 11.5. So this is sort of, from a performance testing point of view, an initial step that we've taken to make sure that performance testing is part of your continuous delivery cycle, given that if you look at performance defects that get introduced into production, it takes probably 20 times more the time to fix a performance defect than it does to fix a functional defect, which is why it's so important that as you introduce changes into your application, you are conducting performance tests as well. And to help you with that, to help you with doing those in a much more intelligent manner, to help you do those in a faster manner, we've put our focus towards things as getting information from production. We understand, and it's a popular saying out there, that 80% of the people use 20% of your application, so that's what is the focus. So what you want to do is understand from production what this 20% of my application is, and what is it, how do I actually tune my load tests to actually test for the right thing. So this is a huge focus for us in terms of connecting the dots and making sure there's enough collaboration between production and the testing side of things, specifically the performance testing side of things, so you are not surprised when you go into production as much. So we do understand that, we do obviously don't agree with it, that the performance is often left at the very end of the cycle, but with Agile and with continuous delivery, we see an opportunity where performance testing may actually become the basis of how good the quality of their application is. So again, PAL is a huge focus, and the other one that we talked about around lab management automation is basically your speed to delivery. How fast can I actually deliver a solution, given that there are challenges out there from a environment, infrastructure perspective.
Okay, great. So Gurmeet, I've got a question here, and folks, I'm still waiting for a few more. So the question I have is LoadRunner 11.52 protocol, or just the LoadRunner tool itself, supports IE10?
So at this point, there is definitely something that is on the roadmap. I don't know, to be very honest, but it definitely is. For 11.52, we don't actually currently support it, but it's on the roadmap.
Okay, great. So here's another question. I mean, I want to kind of go back a little bit into the VTS. As you know, some of the folks on this bridge today, if you have used VTS with the older version, it goes back to many years ago. I think back to even 2004. Now, obviously, there's a renewed push from Gurmeet and HP product team to bring VTS into mainstream, so to speak, and the VTS itself has evolved. So Gurmeet, my question to you is, looking at the older version of VTS Virtual Table Server versus the newer one, which was recently released with LoadRunner 11.52, what are the major differences? And is it any easier to use now than it was before?
Okay. So like we mentioned, some of the things with VTS. So initially, VTS was a desktop application that you could use to handle dynamic data and pass information from one place to the other when you're doing your load testing. With the new VTS that has now been revamped for 11.52, you basically have a NoSQL database for sharing the data between your virtual users. Again, keeping in mind that you're looking at dynamic information. You have now a web console that allows you to administer how VTS is actually going to be used. There's a much easier way to import information into VTS now and also export it. And some of the new things that the focus is on is around integrating the scripting APIs directly into VTS. So the ability to actually call VTS directly from a script.
Okay, great. Now, do you still have to include the header file, or is that all gone? Your function library is part of the LoadRunner function library?
So, good question. Again, I can get some additional information on this. I am not completely in touch with the LoadRunner side of things, but I can post it back to this forum. Okay,
sure. And let me kind of do maybe a VTS 101. I've been a VTS fan for a long time, right? So what Virtual Table Server is, folks, is that it allows you to manage your data. One of the biggest challenges that you run into when working especially with applications like SAP, Oracle E-Business Suite. You have a staggering amount of data that you're creating. You have to pass it to different scripts, and it becomes a challenge. A typical way of doing this is where I've seen companies or testers try to create scripts and create multiple sections or actions within a script. So you might, for example, want to create an order, and then as a result of creating an order, you have an order number and you want to search on it, right? So you will create a script. That will be a very big script. You will have one action that will create the order. The other action then, will search the order that was created from the previous action. Now, what VTS allows you to do is it allows you to be more flexible. It allows you to not force the actions or different processes or business processes to be in one script. So with VTS, for example, you will set up a server, and there's no SQL involved here. It's just a table server. And from within your script, once you create the order, you will capture your order number and send it over using a command to this table server. And now you might have a different set of users be able to pick up those order numbers and use it for whatever they're doing, whether it's searching or other business processes they have to perform. So really, really nice, way to manage your data in performance testing. Okay, so I'm still waiting for some more questions. The crowd is awfully quiet today. So my question, kind of going back to the whole DevOps theme here, Gurmeet, what is the future of performance application lifecycle? Not so much from roadmap perspective. I'm kind of trying to figure this out from a feature perspective. Like today, you can capture real user monitor, BPM, and site scope data. Are there any other sources of data that will be provided in the future? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, consider these roadmap items, which means they are subject to change at any point. And again, there's no time commitment around these features. But some of the things that we are focusing our energies on is looking at analytical tools that are in the market right now, specifically around customer-facing applications or even internal applications, depending on the tool of choice that you're using for analytics. So our focus has been around, of course, looking at information from a web server point of view. So definitely, we already provide you with an API that allows you to pull this information from web server logs. And the process for this is going to be defined and detailed within the next releases. In addition to that, we're looking at an integration with Google Analytics as well, given that it's one of the tools that is most heavily used by customers these days to understand information around marketing, etc., on your website. What we want to do is keep the same trend. Of course, we want to understand what is being used specifically on your application. What are the pages that are being accessed the most? For example, page visits. What are the navigations of a customer when they come onto your website? So we want to basically get insights into this data and bring them back into Performance Center so we use them as our top candidates for testing, and specifically performance testing. So Google Analytics is one. IIS is another one. So we provided an API that would pull in IIS log information very easily in the previous release, but now we're building some more automation around it. So those are, I believe, some of the other sources that we are focusing on.
Okay, great. So question here. The question is, what's the current supported version of ALM with Performance Center plugin? I'm assuming the question is, what version of ALM and Performance Center can be integrated. So Gurmeet, you want to answer that?
Sure. So the latest version of ALM is 11.5.2. The latest version of PC is 11.5.2, and those they need to be on the 5.2 version in order to be integrated and working.
Okay, great. Still waiting for some more questions, folks. So I'll ask another one here. It kind of relates to the continuous delivery automation. How easy is that integration between ALM and CDA? Is it a complex process, or is it a something that organizations can adapt very quickly, or can you shed some light on what the learning curve is, so to speak, in that aspect?
Okay. So CDA is something that is an interesting denomination because it fits in many areas. It could fit in your application lifecycle management area, which is basically the true fit for it. But it could also fit in with your release management, or it could also fit in with your ops side of the house, where you're looking at deploying directly into production. So depending on the CDA, if you look at it as a standalone solution, the whole point around CDA is to make sure that it is seamless, depending on which area of the organization wants to actually use it. And the whole concept is around reusability of your application structure. So CDA allows you to basically build models for your applications, choose from a plethora of infrastructure choices as well as application level choices to build exactly what the infrastructure for your AUT or your production application should look like. And once all of that is done, you have the ability then to connect it to various regions. So you could connect it, in our case, connect it to ALM. And ALM fulfills two use cases because you need an infrastructure, you need AUT infrastructure to actually finish your testing procedures in order to stay agile to push this out into production. So from an integration point of view, once you've actually set up the model for your application, everything can be done directly from ALM. And this includes provisioning and deploying of the build, or actually using an already deployed instance of the application under test. So from a process point of view, the setup within CDA is a one-time thing for your application, unless the application architecture itself progresses. And if we're looking specifically, because these days what we see with the agility of the applications is mostly the application front-end changes, or a little bit lower on the functionality changes, the architecture stays the same. In order to maintain that sync and maintain the velocity of change therein, ALM really doesn't need to do anything except just connect to that CDA instance and push out as required.
Okay, and just to, you kind of touched on this from a high level, Gurmeen, just to kind of, provide additional details. So folks, CDA is a separate tool itself, continuous delivery automations, and what it allows you to do is work with virtual machines, and I think we had a screenshot here that Gurmeen was presenting. You can create models for your application, as Gurmeen was just talking about. These are topologies. You can create, for example, if your application has 2 web servers and 2 app servers and or 4 app servers in a database, you create that in CDA, and then, as Gurmeen talked about, you can deploy this from ALM and run your test against this particular environment. The benefit of this is, again, kind of goes back to what we were talking about, continuous delivery, DevOps. In traditional days, especially myself, I come from a performance testing background, and a lot of times the challenge that performance testers and folks like myself ran into was provisioning the hardware, which took months. And there was a set timetable. You had to do your testing in that timetable, and if you don't get it done, oh well. So with CDA, it eliminates that. It allows you to rapidly deploy environment application under test and run your test, undeploy it, so you can use your resources such as virtual machines and memory. So I really encourage you to look into that, and so I think that's the future here we're talking about, and it really makes testing a whole lot easier. So one of the questions I've just gotten here, Gurmeen, is if we have ALM 11 already, do we need to buy ALM 11.52 or ALM 11 licensable support?
Sorry, what was the question with regards to what functionality?
Yeah, so the question is, perhaps I can even answer this. If they have ALM 11 already, can they just upgrade to ALM 5.2 as part of their maintenance contract, or do they need to buy licenses?
No, you can upgrade from ALM. You can do a direct upgrade to 11.5.2 without any purchase. This is under your support.
Okay. Okay, so I haven't gotten any additional questions here. With that, I just wanted to thank everyone on the call here for attending the webinar. Hopefully you found value in the topics that Gurmeet and myself presented. And Gurmeet, I wanted to thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate it. I'm sure we'll be doing a few more webinars together in coming weeks and months. So once again, thanks everyone, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.